Hey everyone, this is Seth from the Horror Syndicate, and this is another episode of Brundlefly's Rankings and Reviews. And today I'm going to be ranking the 12 films in the Friday the 13th franchise. As with any ranking, it is difficult because, on surface level, it may seem just because films are towards the bottom of the list that I don't like them or that I don't find value in them, and that's not true at all. It's more about preference. Um, there are some negatives I have about some of the ones towards the bottom of the list, but this is a franchise that I extremely love, that I watch often, and to me, there's not a single Friday 13th movie that I refuse to watch. Like, I can watch any of these at any time and have fun with them. Um, I um, I don't hate a single one. Um, they're just there's just some that I gravitate more towards than the others. And as I'm gonna try to say some positives about even some of the ones towards the bottom of the list, and at pretty early on in this video, is I'm gonna get to a point where there's not gonna be any negatives at all. This is not a this is not a franchise that you can take too seriously. It's clearly a bunch of movies that are all very flawed, but you just have to kind of look past them because what they are is just popcorn horror movies. So they are what they are, and to get too critical on these movies would be kind of ridiculous. But mostly the negatives that I would have about some of the ones towards the bottom of the list are just more coming from a place of a fan. If that makes any sense to you, I don't know. So with that, I'm going to get to ranking. So coming at number 12 is the eighth film, Friday 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. Now, I know that this is a movie that a lot of people don't like, and it's also a movie that's been getting a lot of love in the last couple of years, which is great. I'm glad that people like this one and like this one more than me. I know. I think Brian from the Horror Syndicate wrote an article on the horrorsyndicate.com defending the movie. So if you like this movie, that's great. This is just strictly my opinion, in my opinion only. But I think one of the things that it's some of the things that I don't like about it is a lot of the writing. There's a lot of stupidity in the movie between the lake and the ocean connecting, the toxic waste in New York City, Rennie's backstory where she was pushed into the lake and she encountered young Jason in the lake, in the lake, and how that continuously affects her and haunts her. It's just stuff I didn't really go for. Some of the positives of the movie, though, is I really did like Rennie. I thought she was a very likable character. Her uncle was he's one of those characters that you see quite a bit in some of the later movies where it's a character that you love to hate. And he's not quite great as a secondary villain as, say, Dr. Cruz in Part 7, but he's sort of on that level, and the actor that played him did good with that role. I like I think my favorite thing about this movie is the character of Julius, and my favorite scene is the scene with Jason and Julius on the rooftop. That's a scene I always look forward to watching anytime I put in the movie. Like, I look forward to that moment. It was just really cool. Julius throwing fist, trying to box Jason, and he's tiring himself out, and Jason punches his head off. That's one of my favorite moments in that movie, and with one of my favorite characters in that movie. I really liked the character Julius. I thought he was great. But other than that, this is a movie that has been consistently the bottom of my list ever since I first discovered this franchise. Um, it's it's not one that I hate. It's not one that I refuse to watch. I do put this in from time to time. I definitely tend to go more towards the Paramount movies than the New Line movies, and it's it is what it is. I'm not gonna judge it too harshly. It is the eighth installment. I liked another positive about the movie too is Kane Hodder as Jason. Kane is not my favorite Jason, but he does very well with the role. He looks good as Jason. His performance is good as Jason. But yeah, so that's a positive. But the reason why it is the bottom of my list is just because of mostly the write-in stuff. I just found to be very stupid. But if you like it, I'm glad. I know that it is getting some love, as I mentioned earlier, so that's cool too. So with that, it is the bottom of my list. Coming in at number 11 is the 10th film, Jason X, which is, to me, it's a fun movie. Okay, it is the first one, unfortunately, that I got to see in theaters. But it was I have a fun time watching it. It's the Batman and Robin of the Friday the 13th franchise, to be honest with you. And if you look at the old films, like the early Paramount Friday movies, and then you think of Jason X and you think of where the franchise went and all the stuff that happens in this movie, you're kind of like, what the fuck, man? What happened to this franchise? It is definitely far different than when Sean Cunningham or Steve Miner or Joseph Zito, when they first kind of came, when they first kind of did their Friday movies. It's franchise has changed a lot by this point. But at the same time, I have fun with it. I'm not gonna lie. It's not one that I watch a lot, but anytime I do watch it, I do enjoy it. It is stupid, but it's funny at the same time. It's not quite the level of fun as, say, like Jason Lives. It doesn't have that wit to it, but it's Jason in space. What the fuck do you expect? So yeah, with that, it is at number 11. That's that. So coming in at number 10 is the ninth film, Jason Goes to Hell. Now, this is not a movie that bothers me like it bothers most people. To be honest with you, I've always kind of had this weird sort of experience with it where it's just so weird and it's just so out there, and at the same time, it's also just a fun movie. It's got a lot of cool kills, really fun characters. I mean, Creighton Duke is great. I love Stephen Williams. He is definitely, I think, probably an underrated actor. And the way he portrays Creighton Duke is just awesome. Everything that he says is great. I also liked Rusty Schlimmer's character. What's her name? Joey P. Is that what it is? I'm not sure. If you know, just go ahead in the comments and correct me. I don't mind. But she's great. I love everything that comes out of her mouth. The way she says everything. The way she performs the character. She's just such a fun character to watch. And so I like that. The main character, Steven, he was alright. His ex-wife or ex-girlfriend, Jessica, I think her name is, she was okay too. It was... I understand that, when you get to a certain point in a franchise, you have to do something different. But what they did was maybe a little too different. And this is nothing against Adam Marcus. I know he was young when he took the job. I'm sure if any, Sean Cunningham comes to any of us, no matter how inexperienced we are, and say, hey, would you like to do a Jason movie? Fuck yeah, we're going to do it. And he had to work with some of the demands of Sean Cunningham. So I don't fault him at all. The body jumping worm thing was a little weird. The fact that Jason is resurrected out of his dead sister's, complete with a hockey mask, that's fucking weird. The new mythology to it, where all of a sudden Jason has siblings, it's like they were going a little too close to the Halloween franchise with the mythology. And even including the Necronomicon from the Evil Dead franchise. It was a neat little Easter egg, but overall, it's not one of my favorites. It's got great effects, fun characters, and if I want to watch the Friday the 13th movies. I have a dozen others to go to for my preference. So having the one weird one doesn't really bother me. Like it bothers a lot of people, and it gets a lot of shit, and Adam Marcus gets a lot of shit. But the movie is what it is, and I don't mind it at all. So that is number 10. Coming at number 9 is Freddy vs. Jason, which, to be honest with you, I wasn't even sure I was going to put on this list because, as I've kind of maintained since I first saw this movie, is that while it's a fun movie and I do really like it, and I have a lot of good memories of around the time that it came out, I was very, very hyped for this movie, and it was just, yeah, it was just a good time when this movie came out. But one of the things I've always maintained is that this movie is better as a Freddy movie than it is as a Jason movie. And I think a lot of that has to do with Ronnie Yu, the director, which, he's a good visual director. I do like him, but he came in not knowing anything about either franchise, which is kind of unfortunate. And so, along with that came the decision to make Jason more sympathetic. So he's now the misunderstood Frankenstein monster. But that doesn't really work for me as a Jason fan. I feel like they should have put more emphasis on the main characters, the kids, make them more sympathetic. Let Freddy and Jason be the monsters that they are. And so I wasn't sure if I was going to put it on the list because it's really not very good as a Jason movie. Another thing I want to say about this too is with Kane Hodder. So Kane is not my favorite Jason, as I mentioned earlier. I'm more of a Ted White, Richard Brooker, C.J. Graham, Derek Mears kind of guy. I like those performances as Jason the best, and that's just my personal opinion. But I do have to say, Kane Hodder, I know this is not how Hollywood works, but he deserved to be in that movie. He should have been Jason in that movie. He's what fans wanted in that movie. And I think the decision not to cast him mostly came because of the decision to make Jason sympathetic. And that was a big mistake. Kane Hodder, his love and enthusiasm towards the character, towards the franchise, towards the fans is fucking outstanding. I mean, I've never met him personally, but you could find stories all across the internet where people have met him, and there's always good things to say about him. Just even in the interviews he does, he seems like a really awesome guy. Like, he should have been Jason in that movie, and he got the short end of the stick, unfortunately, because I think that if it was his Jason in the movie, and if they didn't decide to make Jason a certain way, if they didn't have Jason be the Frankenstein monster, the movie could have been way more intense. I really believe that. I believe that it could have been a really intense movie with him and his performance. But it is what it is. It's a fun movie. I like it. Like I said, I had a fun time with it. Lots of great memories of seeing it on the big screen, seeing it with friends. My experience of working at a movie theater around the time that it came out, and all the promotional material and stuff like that. And, it was like, 10, 11 years in the making. So it was great to finally see that. And to pay off the ending of Jason Goes to Hell, which I didn't mention, actually, when I talked about Jason Goes to Hell. But, yeah, it's a fun movie, but it's just, I like it more on the Freddy side. I'm also a Freddy fan, too, so it's not bad. But anyway, coming in at number 8 is Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. Now, this is where I'm getting to a point where everything from now on is just movies in this franchise that I love, and I hate the fact that I have this one so low because I do really like this movie. So I like. First off, I love the opening of the movie. Okay, you have Crazy Ralph himself, Walt Gorney, coming back to do this awesome voiceover narration where he's talking about Jason and the death curse, and then there's the new score that's playing, which I love this score, by the way, and that really gets me pumped up for the movie. I like some of the characters. I like Laura Park Lincoln as Tina. I like Kevin Blair as Nick. I know him also from Subspecies 2 and 3, but he plays a very likable character. The character Melissa, I'm not sure of the actress's name, but she's one of those characters that you love to hate. And and because of that, her death is earned. You know, she gets a pretty. What happens to her is pretty cool. I always like that moment in the movie. And another character too is Dr. Cruz, who is this terrific secondary villain in the movie. The performance is awesome. I love that guy, and to be honest with you, he's one of my favorite things of the movie. I think he's probably the strongest performance-wise in the movie, probably stronger than a lot of other Friday 13th movies too. He's just really good. I think one of the things why it's a little bit lower than some of the other ones is the telekinesis stuff. Again, I understand when you do sequels, you can't just keep doing the same thing. You got to find something different to do. And at this point, they brought Jason back with a bolt of lightning, and he's now a zombie. So it's already gotten into that ridiculous level. But it's just not my preference when it comes to Friday 13th movies. I miss the simplicity of the series from like the first, I'd say, first 5 movies, really. The way that they were done, the way there was more suspense. It was less about the character as an icon. So, it's the only reason why it's so low. But I love the movie. I hate the fact that it's placed this low on this list because it is one that I visit often. I really do enjoy it. Not as much as some of the other ones, but I think it's a really good sequel. It's just, my own personal stubborn preference when it comes to this franchise. So, with that said, I'm moving on to my number 7 pick, which is, obviously this is going to make me sound very hypocritical in a lot of ways. So, number 7 is the first movie, Friday 13th from 1980. Now, this is a movie I never really thought very highly of until probably the last couple years. It's one that I've grown to love more and more over time. But when I first saw it, I was young then, stupid and all that. And when I think of Friday 13th, I think of Jason. I don't think of the mother. But it's a movie in the last couple of years. I watched it way more than I used to. And it's... Right now, when I watch it, I have like this nostalgic thing where I'm like, man, I really miss the old school Friday 13th movies. The way they look, the way they feel. So it has that aspect going for it. Some of the characters I don't think are all that interesting. Alice is okay as the lead, but everyone else is just kind of there. I like Crazy Ralph, he's great, but it's just not all that impressive as a horror movie, and I don't want to sound disrespectful at all, because I understand the significance of this movie to the horror genre. It was made because of they wanted to capitalize on the success of Halloween, so they made this so they could earn some bucks to make another movie or show or whatever. And it became so popular and so influential that it ended up influencing the entire genre, including the Halloween franchise. So that's kind of funny to me. It's like it was made because of Halloween, and then it ended up inspiring what the Halloween franchise was to become. So I like it. I like Betsy Palmer as Pamela Voorhees. Now, with her review, I do feel like the way most people feel, is that it wasn't quite earned. I think if she appeared in the movie in a couple scenes here and there, and we got to see a different side of her where she appeared nice and friendly, it would have felt a little bit more earned. But other than that, she's good, and I like her whole motivation. Although her whole motivation is ruined by the sequels, by the fact that Jason ended up still being alive, and he somehow saw Alice kill his mother at the end. So it's good, and it's a great and an influential movie, but it is not one of my favorites. So yeah. Anyway, the first movie is good. I like it. It's grown on me more. But I it is my number 7 because I do prefer some of the other ones over it. So moving on to number 6 is going to be the remake from 2009, which is essentially a remake of 1 through 4. This is a movie I always liked. When I first saw it in theaters, I thought it was great. My opinion on it has gone a little downhill since then, since rewatching. But the opening 20 minutes is awesome. Just awesome stuff. Right before, I mean, you had the credits that kind of recapped Pamela's revenge, and then you move on to this group of characters, and it never really occurred to me I didn't see the Friday 13th title card pop up on screen yet. And then you get all these characters getting taken out like it's just its own separate Friday 13th movie before the title even pops up. I think that was great. It's a good, fun, entertaining movie with some decent characters. I know people don't like Trent very much. I think he's the character that he was supposed to be, and I think he does great as this douchebag character. I thought he was kind of fun to see, and he was stupendous. And I like Jared Padalecki as Clay. Now I know some people who know me may kind of question me on this, but I saw this movie long before I became obsessed with Supernatural, so the fact that Sam Winchester is in this movie is completely irrelevant, okay? But yeah, it's a good movie. I would have liked it if it had a Harry Manfredini score, and if there was a little bit more suspense with it. It would have been great, because this is more like the full-on Jason, which is like the Jason from like the later sequels where he's more of an icon and you see him a lot. And I prefer the old school Friday 13th, where you don't really see him until the third act. You see his boot, you see his hand, just parts of his body with the way that the camera is placed. But I enjoy this movie. I think it's really fun. It's a fun time. I know some people hate it. Some people don't like it. Some people are like me. But I enjoy it. So that's why it is at number 6. Coming in at number 5 is the third film, which I didn't realize until recently. A lot of people hate this movie. But it is what it is. It's to me, it's one of the old school Friday 13th movies, which is a big deal to me. It's very simplistic. It's just a group of friends. They go to a remote vacation home, Higgins Haven, and Jason just goes and takes them out one by one, and it's definitely not one of the best of the early movies, but there is just something about it that grabs me. There's something about it that makes me want to watch it. I know that the 3D stuff that they try to do, all the 3D setups, it can be a little distracting, and when you watch it in 2D, it's very noticeable and distracting. But it doesn't really bother me as much. As far as the characters, Chris was okay. She's a little annoying at times. Her backstory where she's attacked in the woods by Jason. Some people think it's an implied rape. I'm not so sure. I don't know if it's just, he was trying to grab her, but her story, the way it's told, the way that she says that, she just woke up and she was in her bed and her parents didn't talk about it. Who knows? Jason's never put the moves on any female, so it just wouldn't make sense for his character to be all rapey. My personal opinion. But I like Shelley. I've always liked Shelley. I know it's a character that can probably get on a lot of people's nerves. He's sort of the pity me type of person. But what I like about his character specifically is how his death really pays off everything that he does in the movie. Like, I love the whole aspect of Crying Wolf. How he sometimes throughout his pranks played dead and all these other stuff, and then when he goes into the kitchen to get help from the hippie chick and his throat is slit, she doesn't believe him. She thinks it's just another one of his pranks. So he, it's I really like that aspect of the character. I thought his whole arc paid off by the end with his death, and so I liked him. Of course, this is the movie where Jason got his hockey mask, which was cool. Yeah, there's just there's fun stuff in this movie. It's not so much disco music, but the main score from Harry Manfredini is really good, especially in a couple moments where I thought it gets really kind of intense. But I enjoy the movie, so I guess much more than other people. And like I said, I just found out that a lot of people don't like the movie. So it's at number 5. Coming in at number 4, this may shock people, this may not shock people. I don't know. It's hard to gauge. Is number 4 is the 5th film, New Beginning. This is a movie that I've always felt was a little underrated. It's considered to be the black sheep. It's, a lot of people don't like it because it's not Jason. But what I do like about it is that it's not Jason. I like the fact that it goes back to the first film, where it's a vengeful parent killing a bunch of people who had nothing to do with their child's death. But this time, he's using the legend of Jason to, I guess, kind of strike fear and to exact his revenge. And I really kind of like that. I like that aspect of it. So the fact that it's not Jason doesn't bother me at all. I like the fact that it goes back to the first film, but also the character uses, the character from the other sequels as a disguise. I like that. I think this movie has a lot of fun, colorful characters too. Ethel and that big dildo Junior. They were a lot of fun. I always get a kick out of them. So I like them. Some of the kids at the halfway house I don't really care for. But I did like Reggie the Reckless. I thought Tommy was great in this movie. He was really badass in this movie. I mean, that motherfucker's fast. When he pounds Junior, that's great. Like he's fast. Yeah, so he was really good, and I think what's his name? Is it John Shepard, who played Tommy? I thought he did really good at playing sort of like a tortured Tommy, someone who was just kind of losing his mind. I thought he did good. So I liked him. I liked the movie. Like I said, I feel like it's underrated. It doesn't get enough love. I think people don't like it just because that it's an imposter instead of the real thing. But I mean, you got to consider too. I mean, Jason died at the end of the final chapter, and final chapter was originally supposed to be the final chapter, but money talks and bullshit walks, and so when they wanted to just keep going with the series to capitalize on that money, they needed to do something because, I mean, even at this point in slasher movies, the slashers could still die and stay dead, and but that's not what fans wanted. Fans wanted the characters back. That's why Michael Myers survived getting shot in both eyes and caught in an explosion. That's why Jason is back as a zombie. That's what fans wanted, and but I personally, I could have been on board with a franchise that continued on with other people being the killers in the Friday the 13th franchise, because it didn't start with Jason. It started with Jason as the catalyst. His alleged death led to his mother killing a bunch of people. And then her death led to Jason killing a bunch of people. And, it would have continued on with Jason being the catalyst for all this stuff and people using his legend and his, in the hockey mask. You would have still had people in a hockey mask. It just wouldn't have been Jason Voorhees. It could have been someone else. And at that point, I think anyone could have been the killer. But that's just me. It's an unpopular opinion. I know a lot of people put number 5 really low on the list. I think I even saw one video where someone put it as the worst. I don't feel that way about that movie. It's also like kind of like the last one in the Paramount movies where there's a level of suspense. It's the last one that kind of has that old school feel to it. So I enjoy it. That is why it's at number 4. Coming in at number 3 is the second film, Friday the 13th Part 2. Obviously, because of the way that these are ranked, I do feel like this is superior to the first movie. I thought the characters were a lot more likable, a lot more distinct than the characters from the first movie. I especially love Amy Steele as Ginny. She is my favorite final girl in the entire in the entire franchise. She's just fantastic. I love her. I love everything about her character, and it made sense. I know that, like, say for example in the remake, a lot of people have a problem with the idea that Jason had Whitney captured because she allegedly looked like his mother, which bullshit, because the actresses did not look alike. But regardless, and so they tried to go back to part 2 with Whitney pretending to be Jason's mother to get him to stop. But it didn't really make as much sense in that movie as it does in this movie, because it's established in Friday the 13th Part 2 that Ginny is majoring in child psychology. So it kind of makes sense for her character to think of putting on the sweater to try to confuse Jason. She talks about Jason earlier in the movie when she's at the bar. So she has an understanding of that he was, I guess, a simpleton. And that all he knows is death because of what he saw, and that she was just... It made sense for her to do that. I also think that Friday the 13th Part 2 is actually one of the ones I could consider to be scary. I think it's got a great atmosphere to it. There's a couple moments that... when I first watched this, when I was a teenager many years ago, there's a couple moments that kind of got me a little bit. I'm not someone that scares easy when it comes to movies, but there's the scene where the one girl who's trying to get down the pants of of Mark, the guy in the wheelchair, when she goes to Jeff and Sandra's room and she's approaching the bed, and Jason just sits up with his knife. That was a cool and effective moment. For some reason, always that scene where Ginny and Paul are looking around the place, and Ginny says, "Paul, there's someone in the fucking room." For some reason, like when I first saw that I thought was like kind of scary. That was kind of like it seemed like a real thing. Like you're there with the characters in this room, and it's totally in the dark, and there's some stranger in there with you. So I thought that was a cool moment. It's a good movie. I think my only negative would be the beginning of the movie, where it is where it revisits the end of the first movie a lot with Alice having the dreams about what happened. And then she eventually gets killed because Jason tracked her down, which doesn't make sense. That's really the only negative. I think like once we get to the main characters, once we get to Ginny and Paul and all these other characters, the movie just is good. It's very solid. It's definitely one of my favorites in the franchise. So it is at number 3. Coming in at number 2. This was difficult to do. Between my number 1 and my number 2, this is where I fluctuate a lot. I have a hard time making up my mind. Some years it's number 2 is my favorite. My number 2 pick on this list is my favorite. Sometimes my number 1 pick on this list is my favorite. I go back and forth, and they're two totally different tones. And I'll talk about this in a bit after I get through my number 1. So coming at number 2 is the 6th film, Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives, which I think is the best directed out of the entire franchise. Tom McLaughlin did awesome with this movie, and it's probably one of the best written. It's just a fun movie from beginning to end. This is the first Friday the 13th movie I saw in full, back when I first discovered this franchise. So it's a fun movie, man. I put this in a lot. I watched it a lot. It never gets old. It's just fun from beginning to the end. There's the stupidity of the fact that Jason's brought back with lightning, sort of like Frankenstein's monster. But it's great. It's got a lot of good quick wit and humor, and it's got a lot of fun energy to it. It's got some really badass stuff to it. It's just a really fun movie to watch, and it's one of the ones I watch the most. It's that good, in my opinion. Coming at number 1 is the 4th film, Friday the 13th, part. I don't know. They don't say part 4. Friday the 13th, the final chapter. So, what I like about this and why it edges out Jason Lives is because it is better as a horror movie and as a slasher movie. I think it's just a lot more effective that way. And honestly, final chapter and Jason Lives kind of is more of a tie to me as far as they go, because I love Final Chapter for how dark it is, and I love Jason Lives for how fun it is. They're just two totally opposites as far as tone. But the reason why Final Chapter edges... Sorry. The reason why Final Chapter edges out Jason Lives is just because it's darker, and it has my favorite Jason in it. I love Ted White as Jason. His body language is incredible. He is probably the most intimidated Jason to me. So I really like him, and I really like a lot of the characters in this movie. Especially Crispin Glover, and his whole thing. The whole thing between Jimmy and Teddy is fucking hilarious. Everything with the computer. I actually sent a text to my friend Josh last night, telling him the computer says that he's a dead fuck. I just love it. But it's one of my favorites, because I think it's like the epic culmination of the first 3 movies. It's like 1, 2, and 3 were leading to this point. They were leading towards this little boy killing Jason, and that's fantastic. I love it. So those are my rankings of the Friday the 13th franchise. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, and that's fine. Go ahead. Say whatever you want. It would be great if you guys would post your rankings in the comments. That would be awesome, because there's a lot of movies, there's a lot of fans, a lot of different opinions. So it'd be, it'd be kind of cool to read what anyone else thinks. But these are just my opinions, and I'm not going to say I'm right and that you're wrong, and vice versa. Let's just talk about Friday the 13th as fans. Let's be fans together. We don't have to like the same ones. I think there's a lot of cool conversations to have about this. I know that some people, even from the Horror Syndicate, Ray and Keith and Nate and Brian and just anyone else who is a part of the Horror Syndicate, they're probably not going to agree with me. So I'm kind of looking forward to talking to them about these movies too. But anyway, if you like this video, hit the thumbs up button, leave a comment with your rankings, subscribe to our channel, and if you don't like this video, if you don't like me, if you don't like the way that I rank these, hit the thumbs down button. If if that's the way you feel, just forget it. But I think you're way out of line. So anyway, I'm Seth. This is Brundleflies Rankings and Reviews. Just have a good rest of your afternoon or night or whatever. And until next time, peace out, fuckers.